What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to all the brothers and sisters out there who are tuning in. Shabbat Shalom. Definitely going to. Sister Onleilove, I would definitely be bringing you in here in just a few seconds here. All right, you should be getting the invite. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. How you doing?
Shabbat Shalom. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am great. I'm great. And it's awesome truly to be here and have our sister on and on this Shabbat. It's definitely awesome. I see other brothers and sisters are coming in here, and so we're going to give them time to come in and whatnot. Definitely, you want to share this, invite if you have the option to. Some of you don't have the option because you may not have any friends in the group, but if you have any friends here, you can invite as well as share. And hello, hey,
Hi,
Sister
Shalom, Esther. Hey, girl.
Yeah, Sister Esther. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom to you, Brother Philip Fowler as well. Brother Richmond, how you doing? Shalom to you as well. Our brother prayer warrior Alejandro Henry, Pastor Alejandro Henry. Shalom to you as well, brother. Peace, many blessings to our brother Eric, Beat Bros, Jennifer Mathis. So brothers and sisters are tuning in, they coming in, and it's truly a blessing. So I'm going to definitely give them an opportunity. I know we are strict on time. Our sister is with us tonight. It is 7:03 Eastern Standard Time. And so definitely want to go ahead and introduce yourself. It's better to let you give the introduction. You can introduce yourself better than I can. All right.
Thank you so much, Evangelist Brown, for having me on. I definitely appreciate your ministry and have to say this is a very positive and uplifting group. Sometimes people add you to groups and it just be like, it is too negative, but this is really a great group to learn. I'm Shabbat Shalom Richmond from Ghana, and Esther, my friends and family. My name is Onleilove Chica Alston, and I'll explain a little bit about my name later. And I am the founder of Prophetic Whirlwind, Uncovering the Black Biblical Destiny. And I founded Prophetic Whirlwind as a teaching ministry about 4 years ago this month, when two women, Roz Hall and Roberta Todd, both Black church mothers in the Episcopal Church, saw what I was doing online, posting about the Black presence in the Bible and lost tribes in Africa. And they asked me to do 2 weeks of workshops on the Black presence in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, and in the New Testament. And they asked me to do that at Trinity Walsh Oldest Church in New York City, and one of the largest real estate holders in Manhattan. And so that was a very prestigious church, and it would just came from the people. The people wanted more information, and so I created social media pages. A few months ago, we launched the website, wrote articles for Christian publications like Sojourners, and y'all really just opened the door. I'm also a community organizer, been doing faith-based community and political organizing for about 10 years. And I'm born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn, live in Harlem now. And I'm also a writer. So Prophetic Whirlwind, the book, will be released this March or April by Voices Publishing, which is backed by Colleen College, a Christian college. And for everything that Yah is allowing me to do, I say to Yah be the glory, because I always share my testimony no matter what I'm speaking on. And, when I was 7, my stepfather lost his job and my family lost their house, and we ended up being homeless. And in that year of being homeless, myself and my little brother, Christopher, ended up going into foster care. And my grandmother and aunt took me out of foster care. And when I was 10 years old, I now know it was the Ruach HaKodesh. The Holy Spirit led me to take one of my grandmother's Bibles and pray morning, noon, and night and read the Psalms. But I was not taken to church. My mother was an atheist. My father was a 5%er. My grandmothers had stopped going to church at that time. But Yah literally led me to himself as a lost sheep, as an orphan, as a homeless child. And so everything I do, including the research on Hebrews in Africa, is centered around the gospel. That due to the sinful state Israel fell into, Yah had to divorce his people, but Yahshua came to reunite Yah and Israel, and so that Israel could reach the whole world with the gospel. For me, it's all about the gospel and how, even though in Hebrew culture, when you're divorced, you can't remarry. But when Yah divorced Israel, Yahshua allowed us to get remarried to him. And that's why it's important to be born again. So when I find lost tribes of Israel in Africa, it just reminds me that Yah's word will never go out void, but it will always accomplish the task. So that's a little bit about me. I know we'll be talking about a life-changing trip I took this November to Nigeria to minister to Hebrew women's ministries, but I would be remiss if I didn't give my testimony, because we're saved by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony.
Amen. That's definitely awesome. Awesome testimony. We definitely going to have you back on. You said the book come out next month.
And we probably April it will be out, and we'll be doing some book tour events. It'll be available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, but we'll definitely link up when the book comes out. And since this is such a positive group, I'll give y'all a sneak peek.
Yes, definitely. We definitely need that, and we definitely want to try to help promote our people as much as possible. Anybody that's doing something positive for the kingdom, we definitely try to help promote. This group has Christians as well as Hebrews in here, and everybody is open and objective and willing to learn. As long as it's about Yeshua, as long as it's about the Hamashiach, it doesn't matter. Everything else flows in that manner. Now, let's talk about, because we know in America, it's a opposition. We'll talk about Nigeria and Ghana as well, but we know that there's a heavy opposition when it comes down to embracing the Hebrew culture. We know, and we was talking earlier, we was talking the difference between the way people in America gravitate to it as religion versus over in Nigeria and other places like that. It's a part of the culture. It's a way of life. It's not just that. Why do you think people are so hesitant to embrace the Hebraic culture in America?
Well, one, we have to realize that for Blacks in America, Blacks in Latin America, in Canada, and the diaspora, those who were spread because of the transatlantic slave trade, we had our culture violently ripped from us. So, our names were beaten out of us. Our cultures were beaten out of us. They would even force slaves from warring tribes to mate together during slavery. I mean, we were punished for keeping our culture. And even when you see people ridicule, African names, our current president, not to get political, but a few weeks after I got back from Nigeria, he referred to it as a very bad name. So we were made to be ashamed of anything that wasn't American culture. And so I think that's why we more so approach it as a religion, because we've been allowed to have religion, since slavery, not, the full truth, because my friend, Professor Will Gaffney out of Bright Divinity School, just posted a picture of a slave Bible from the West Indies where the Exodus was removed. So we were only allowed to have a filtered faith, but but we were allowed to have religion, but we weren't allowed to have culture. And one thing I forgot to say about my testimony is, at 14 years old, my aunt looked at me and said, this girl needs to go to church. And so I walked to Greater Bright Light Missionary Baptist Church and gave my life to Yahshua at 14 and was baptized 2 days later. And so I know what it is to be very ingrained in the church, to have leadership positions, to go to seminary. I was even in a Christian sorority, so I still go into the churches and teach, and have a lot of love for those in the church, because that's where I started. But we were allowed to have religion; we weren't allowed to have culture.
Right. And I think that's a thing that we see over today, where people, a lot of brothers who come into what we call the truth, a lot of them begin to take on the mindset that the church, the Christian church, is our enemy. And would you speak on that? Do you feel as though the Christian church is our enemy? Can we work together? Can we be an asset in helping them, especially with the youth and different things like that?
Yes, I think that we can be an asset in keeping the youth in believing in the Bible. The reason I started Prophetic Whirlwind is I was seeing so many young people. I'm talking about young people who were PKs, pastor kids, my friend who was an actor in gospel plays that people listening probably saw turn to the comedic side of things or turn into atheists. And so I know once we actually make the connection through African culture to our role in the Bible, I've seen young people stay and be strong and actually start to take responsibility for their own faith. I also think we have to remember that it was the prayers of our grandmothers and grandfathers who didn't have an alternative that allowed us to wake up now in the appointed time. So I don't see things as a break. I see things as growing into greater truth. I still will say September 29th, 1996, Yahshua saved my soul. And then I can
Right.
tell you in the spring of 2012, I fully embraced my Hebrew heritage and started, keeping Shabbat and all of that. But those two things are not two separate events. It's
Right.
one continuous event in growing in Yah. So when I was leading an organization called Faith in New York, we worked with over 70, well, actually hundreds of congregations in New York City. Some were the historic Hebrew synagogues in New York. Many were Black churches, white churches. When it came to things like getting proper IDs for our people, or getting the ban the box bill passed so that formerly incarcerated people wouldn't be discriminated looking for jobs. We can connect on things to help our community as long as you're strong enough to stand on your square and not be, swayed by other people. But I think, when Hebrew brothers and sisters and Christian brothers and sisters who are all African people primarily start to war with each other over religious doctrines, that's pretty sad, because I'm talking about our bloodline, our calling by Yah. I'm not talking about this religion, that religion. And I think
Right.
we really, the Hebrews in Nigeria that fully embrace, their Hebrew culture, they don't war with the brother or sister down the street that's Pentecostal. They both
Right.
still know, that they're from the same tribe or people. And so we have to be, how can we teach each other? How can we work together, especially to keep these young people? And, before you attack someone for what they don't know, are you helping them learn what they need to know?
Right. Now let's talk about that. Your where you worship, your fellowship in
Mm.
congregation in New York. I know you constantly traveling, especially to the west coast of Africa and things of that nature. Let's talk about where you worship. What is that experience like? Give us a glimpse into where you're at.
So I see one of my brothers from my congregation, Aliyah Israel. Shabbat Shalom, brother. I'll see you in a little while tomorrow. So I praise Yah because it was about 3 years before I found a congregation, a Hebrew congregation to worship with. So I was visiting this place, that place, watching stuff online, weeding through a lot of craziness because I'm in New York and I'm in Harlem, the seat of Hebrew crazy. Um, and so I was Googling online one day and I came across a congregation called Bethel, the House of Yahweh, that in March it will be 65 or 66 years that we were founded by Mother Mickens, a Black woman who was a leader in a big Pentecostal denomination in Harlem. Reading her Bible, she discovered that the name was Yah. And she went to her bishop. She discovered we should be keeping the Sabbath. She went to him humble, and he said, that's true, but we're not going to do that here. So with her husband, they started a fellowship in their house. It grew to a storefront church, and then her son took over. And what I loved about Bethel is when you went to the website, you saw that they were serving the people in the community. Like, we serve about 200 people a week with meals. We have something called Inner City Lighthouse, where we're giving job training so our people can get good union wage jobs. We had a big event at National Black Theater to honor community members. We are a Hebrew congregation. We believe in Yeshua as the Messiah. We believe in the gifts of the Spirit. We also fellowship with Latino congregations, and my congregation has African American, Caribbeans, and Nigerian, Igbo, and Yoruba. And my pastor and brother Alaya are about to go to the same ministry that brought me to Nigeria to give support and visit the brethren over there. So I like the Pan-African feel where you have, also Afro-Latinos, we're all trying to grow in the truth. And so that Pastor Jonathan Mickens is the leader now. And my brother Elia just put the address in the inbox, and you're blessed to come worship with us. A few weeks ago, we had an African themed youth Sabbath where we learned about Hebrews in Africa. We had African food. We dressed in the cultural clothing. My pastor's wife is Kenyan from the Kikuyu tribe, a Hebrew tribe, and she is an expert in Paleo Hebrew. And they support me in everything I do. They prayed for me, donated so I could go to Africa, because they know my calling is outside of the four walls of the church, but we all need a fueling station to empower us to go out.
Now, let me ask you this. I know you guys are very balanced. We were just talking about how we can work with the Christian church and they're not our enemies and things of that nature. I work with a lot of Christian pastors, and it's not even a level of filling out a place or trying to prove them they're wrong or trying to convert them over. It's almost like a mutual respect that, hey, you serve Christ. They may call him Jesus. We may call him Yahweh Shai or Yeshua, and it's no problem. But in today's time, and you touched on it a little bit about over in Nigeria and in Ghana, how the Hebrews there they aren't beefing with the Pentecostal, even if they're part of the same tribe or they identify as Christian. But in America, it's almost like make it their business to picket Christian churches. Do you see that? Is that going on in Ghana and Nigeria?
Now, there's definitely a critique against false teachings that are happening in Africa by Hebrews in Africa, like in Ghana and Nigeria. There'll definitely be a critique, of celebrating maybe Christmas or doing things that are considered pagan. But it's not this, we're going to spend most of our time, trying to go in Bible studies and trip up a pastor. It's more like, this is what we believe. How can we reach more people with the truth? It's not this whole, if people preach on the street, like Elder Cletus Okoro from House of Israel, Nigeria, who brought me over, he's more doing relational evangelism and showing people through their culture and love that they should come in, to Torah and, serve, Yahshua. So, it's a little bit more, and I mean, African culture is not perfect, and I'm sure there was one Hebrew brother, non-Messianic, who went on Ghanaian TV debating 3 or 4 pastors, and he demolished them, and he's kind of extra. But I think, no place is perfect, but I do think Africa overall is a more relational culture than America. Regardless of race, we're just more individualist in having more. I'm an individual, and if you're different from, we're all in our own individual little silos, kind of battling each other, even politically. Like, people can't even have civil conversations. So I think it's easier if you're united, racially and culturally. And if you just have a culture where people still ask, how are you doing? Where people still may eat dinner together, that's another thing. You can't rebuke someone you don't have a relationship with. Like for me,
Right.
it's like, before you speak a word into my life, have you invested in me? So some of my Christian friends, even pastors, even bishops of denominations, will allow me to teach them certain things because we had a relationship. You know,
Right.
are you going to pray for someone when they have a crisis in Yeshua's name, or are you going to beat them up for not praying in Yeshua's name? Are you going to feed me when I'm hungry, or are you just going to tell me how I'm not wearing fringes? Like, you gotta build relationships.
Right. Right. Let me ask you this. The tradition, whether it's oral or written, um, the transition or the migration, or the journey from Israel to the west coast of
Mm-hmm.
Africa. Our brothers and sisters that are there who are Hebrews, how has it been a difficult task in keeping those traditions and our identity and all of those things coming from, because I know there's the Jewish people in the land today, they're the
Mm.
true Jews, and the you Negroes, y'all are Hamites and all this kind of stuff. How difficult has it been for them over there? Because obviously they understand and know more of the journey from across the Middle Passage and the transatlantic slave trade to America. They have still have kept some of that history. But how difficult has it been to keep the writings in the Torah and all of the different traditions and customs that was passed down by all the way from Abraham to Moshe and them keep? Has it been difficult because of Europeans, or has it been difficult because of time?
So it's been difficult, because of Europeans, because of Islam, because of time, because of libraries like Alexandria, and even the library at Timbuktu being attacked and burned. Even 2011, ISIS attacked the library in Timbuktu, and Hebrew documents were found, and they discovered 1,000 Hebrews left there. So, but it's been difficult. It's almost a miracle that this information has lasted. So, what people have to know, because a lot of times of Black American Hebrews, they're like, we're the children of the Bible. Boom. And it's like, it doesn't happen like that. No transatlantic slave ships left from, Tel Aviv in the 1600s.
Right, right.
So people are missing like 1,000 years of history, and they're like, read this chart. So there were a couple of ways in which Hebrews got into Africa. One, people need to know, Mali Mavu, who wrote Call to the Hebrews, excellent array, um, royalty and researcher, talks about the reverse exodus. And Dr. Thomas Oden, a white man who founded the Center for Early African Christianity, says any Africa was always a refuge for those troubled in Judea. The first exodus was out of Egypt, which is Africa, into Israel. Now, we should know until 1869, when the Suez Canal was completed, that Israel was connected to Africa. But the reverse exodus is when you're going from Israel back into Africa. So that happened a great deal. There was the Hebrew colony of Elephantine, where like 200,000 Jews lived. A lot of Jews went to Cyrene. So the Apostle Mark, whose family were Levites, went back and forth between Cyrene and Israel because of conflicts. And you can read about that in the African Memory of Mark by Dr. Thomas Oden. Some people went just for trade. Some people went after the kingdom of Assyria fell. The 10 tribes that were taken away scattered. Some saw that the Assyrians were coming and they left beforehand. Same thing with 70 AD. Some people were sold to Africa as slaves. Some people ran away. Some people, remember, Yeshua warned people, when you saw these things, go to the hills. So some people, ran away before everything happened with 70 AD. And what folks have to realize is people didn't go from Israel to Nigeria in a day, a month, or a year. there were different types of migrations that happened over the course of maybe 100 years. So my mother's side of the family, we were taken from Nigeria, owned by the largest slaveholding family in America. But we know through oral history and DNA testing, when we get together for our association where all the preachers preach and the family gets together, and a lot of Igbos have associations too, we know that we migrated from Egypt and North Africa across the continent. Now, you might hear a lot of African tribes who are Hebrew say we came from Egypt because so many of us went to Egypt. There was hundreds of thousands of them. You know, we love Egypt. Whether it's a pyramid, I mean, that's a stronghold. And Yahshua said, not Yahshua, Yah said, y'all keep looking to Egypt to save you. And at one point, Assyria was about to totally destroy Israel, and Egypt did send an army that saved us. So it's kind of like a love-hate relationship, you know, between the two. But a lot of the blacks in Egypt were pushed out and breaded out and whited out. But a lot of the people that we see in Sudan are the descendants of the original Egyptians, and then there's a few Hebrews in Sudan as well. So with the Kikuyu tribe, my elder's wife, she said, you know, because of the trans-Saharan slave trade, they went from the East Africa to West Africa and then back to East Africa because they were trying to outrun the slave trade. So again, when I used to have Tanzanian roommates, the sisters told me, they said, migration is so key in African culture because most tribes migrated from somewhere else. Even if they're from the continent, they migrated from somewhere else. So if you don't understand how important migration is to African culture, you're going to be confused about how these different people got to Israel. And even with one tribe like Gad, there's people who are Igbo who say they're from the tribe of Gad. There's people who are Ga who say that. Just because there's one tribe, there's one patriarch who probably had a couple of kids. Now, if he had a couple of sons, those are heads of families. So the Igbo only Eri from Gad came to Igbo land. And you can find him in Genesis 46:16. But there's other sons of Gad that went other places. Just like, you know, I have 5 siblings. You know, 3 of us live in New York. 1 is all over the world in the Army. Another one's in Atlanta. He was just in South Carolina. I'm about to be in Liberia. But we're all one family. But we're all going to different places to settle and, you know, have families and this and that. So we also have to understand that patriarchs from different tribes migrated to different places at different times.
Okay. Let's talk about Liberia. You'll be teaching in Liberia. What will you be teaching? What will you be teaching about? How long will you be there?
I'll be in Liberia for about 3 months, and I'll be teaching at the Baptist Theological Seminary, and I'll be teaching the history of Christian theology, the formation of the New Testament, and a more kind of public theology class. They're allowing me to do the syllabi and to incorporate my research into the class. Now, Liberia had a civil war that the sisters ended through fasting and praying. You could watch about that and Pray the Devil Back to Hell. The seminary was closed for a couple of years. Now it's reopening. It's actually an African-American brother who leads it, and they have had a lot of white theology shipped to them. So they want me to come and bring kind of a woman's perspective, but also like an African perspective. So I'm very humbled about that. And I'll be going back to Nigeria to minister again and spending a lot of time in Ghana. So very humbled and excited. When African Americans were sent to Liberia and went to Liberia, we really showed out, and we actually oppressed the native population. So when I go, I'm going to be going with the spirit of humbleness and respect to really show them. And of course, when the African Hebrew Israelites came from America to Israel, they set up camp in Liberia. And Liberia was the last country to vote to recognize Israel as a nation.
Are you talking the ones in Dimona?
Yeah,
okay.
They went through Liberia, but Liberia, actually the UN rep for Liberia, who was from America, he was the last one to cast the vote for Israel to become a country. So even though we know the people over there are not the people, they still needed a actual Hebrew to cast
Right.
that last vote. So Yah was still making sure his people were on it.
I saw a video of one of the rabbis came to Dimona, and this was, I think it was his last year, and he was recognizing, and of course he said he found a place in the Talmud, but he said that he found a place in the Talmud where it said that we were or we are the a part of the 12 tribes. So I don't know if you saw that video. If not, I'll shoot it to you in your inbox so you can see it and check it out. But I want to ask this: what is the mindset? Because I see videos all the time, but I know you're more on the ground, you're more in the field. What is the mindset of the Hebrews on the west coast of Africa towards the Jewish people in the land, and what is the mindset of the Jewish people in the land towards the Hebrews in West Africa?
Well, one, a lot of the African Hebrews, like in Timbuktu, they were so isolated, they thought until the mid-90s they were the only Jews left in the world. And so they were just trying to search for any Jew, any Hebrew to connect with. So it's an interesting relationship. A lot of the Hebrews in Africa get visited by white Jews. They build schools for them. They give money to them. They give them a sense of kind of a rubber stamp of approval. So many are happy and they think, oh, color just changed over time and we're brothers and sisters. Some, like in Sierra Leone, on their synagogue, they have a sign like, we believe in Yahshua. We don't need your money. Stay away from us. So it's a mix of a relationship. It also depends on if people are messianic, non-messianic, if, they're following a camp, but they're in Africa. And it kind of, the reason why I had a desire to go is I saw so many, in my research for my book, I saw so many white Jews visiting, giving them money. And I wanted them to know you have brothers and sisters here who look up to you, who love you, who can also support you. So in 2016, I went to visit the Sefwe in Ghana, and an organization, Kalanu, through my job, meeting the founder of Kalanu, because I worked with her daughter, was a white Jewish organization that connected me to them. And she admitted that they needed to see, Black people over there. And so I went, took the first Black delegation from America. They prayed for us before we went to see the slave castles in Ghana. But it's a lot that's happening because people are being made to convert. And my whole thing is, if you're a bloodline of something, you don't need to reconvert. People who believe in the Messiah are now giving up the Messiah to fit in, to convert, because you can move to Israel if you convert. You can get certain educational and financial opportunities. So I always tell African Hebrews, do not give up your birthright, and especially the Messiah, for a bowl of soup. I know it's hard, and I'm not saying this as a rich American. I'm saying this as someone whose family was homeless, who was a foster child. So I know, the sting of poverty, but still, we got to trust Yah to provide. And that's why it's important for the diaspora in Africa to come together for those two sticks. Everyone loves the dry bones passage in Ezekiel, but what people don't know is right before that, it says the two sticks have to come together, Israel and Judah. And so we have to come together and support each other. And maybe, brother, I can start sharing a little bit about what I saw in Nigeria and what I
Yeah. Go ahead and get into that.
So from November 20th to December 4th, I was in Nigeria, and I was invited by Elder Cletus Okoro from the House of Israel, Nigeria. And they are a part of a bigger ministry, Yahweh Covenant Assembly, which is an independent Nigerian Hebrew ministry started by an Igbo brother, Yoruba brother, and Hausa brother, which, if you know anything about those tribes, that was a miracle. And they have about 60 congregations that practice Torah. When they gather for the feast, it's like 5,000, 6,000 people. Elder Cletus invited me for years, and he said, I feel like you have a word for the women. So I was invited to teach the women Torah. When I visited the Safeway, one of the elders pointed to me and she said in their language, she's supposed to come back and teach us Torah and women's empowerment. And one of the brothers told me, she said that a year before I went to Nigeria. And I was kind of like, well, an elder said it. Oh, no. And then a brother from the Safeway had a dream, you know, when black people start having dreams. So I was like, oh, I got to come back. And so with Elder Cletus, I ministered to women at a couple of congregations, but then also through Instagram, I connected with Yahweh, our Redeemer, which is a part of a collection of 10 Messianic synagogues in a different part of Igbo land who are coming together to start a school. So I'll be sharing how people can support that school in this group and other groups, because we don't want our people to have to go begging to others. You know, even if you're a Christian, we can all get behind a school based on the Bible. So I ministered to them. I also connected with the Igbo Israel Heritage Cultural Association led by Garvel Ogugu, who's a rabbi who taught here for 26 years as an Igbo man. He taught disadvantaged Black youth. And so he knows both parts. And the Igbo Israel Heritage Cultural Association really wants to build up the land, build up agricultural jobs, and then even invite African Americans back to live, to vacation, to work. And so it was an awesome, awesome time. I went there to deliver a word about the Ashet Chayel, which is virtuous woman in English, or woman of valor, and also to just deliver a word about Isaiah 11:11 and African Hebrews. Read Isaiah 11:11 and even to verse 12, and it will show you where Yah's people will be scattered. And one scripture that encouraged me in this was Zephaniah 3:10. From beyond the rivers of Cush, my worshipers, my scattered people will bring me offerings. It really should read, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshipers, my scattered people will bring me offerings. So when you look at a map and you look at beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, you get Central and West Africa. And so when I went there, I shared these things, but also I got so much. I was mostly in Igbo land, and the Igbos in their traditional culture called Omina, they follow the Torah as far as, you know, women being separated on their menstrual, resting on the Sabbath, having certain festivals that are biblical holidays, naming children after 8 days. And my father, who's American, gave me the name Chica when he looked at me. My mother and aunt gave me Onleilove, but my father gave me Chica. But that was really Yah, my 5% of father. But that was really Yah, because in the Igbo language, Chica means God is supreme, or God is above all. And so when I went there and they saw that I had an Igbo name and my mother's family was taken from Nigeria, when I was ministering at Bet HaTorah Synagogue, and I ministered at 2 of their synagogues in Port Harcourt, one of the women started crying and she said, our sister is home. And so they know, one, the Igbos had some of the highest numbers of people taken in the slave trade. The Igbos have always treated their women well with equality, so the women had a lot of business and working skills. Even if you know Igbos today, they have the highest rates of getting masters in America. Well, Nigerians in general. But slave masters were requesting Igbo women. I've seen documents that said that. I've seen records of slave ships where you look at the names, it's just Igbo, Igbo, Igbo.
Igbo, yep.
And so they know that they lost a lot of people. They know, they say we built America through the people y'all stole from us. And Olu Equiano was an Igbo slave who was taken to, he was a prince that was stolen, taken to London. He wrote the first slave narrative. And when he met Jews in London, he said, y'all are doing everything we do in our culture. J.T. Basden, the Anglican missionary who was sent to make Igbos Christian, and a lot of Igbos are, most Igbos are Christian and especially Catholic, he said, wait a minute, these people are living like the Old Testament. I found a lost tribe of Israel, and he thought, I'm going to tell the crown, they're going to give me all these props, I'm going to be a hero. When he told the crown of England, they said, oh, forget that, we need these people to be Christian. And so that's in his diaries. You can go on Amazon, look up J.T. Basin. He wrote everything. And so when I went there, I saw people living out Torah. I saw people dancing when they worshiped. I hardly ever dance in America, but there they were dancing like they were worshiping. Some people slept in the temple Friday night to be there Saturday morning. I felt the anointing, but I also felt the pain of my ancestors. So one of the earliest nights I was in a B estate, and we're driving to where Elder Cletus lives, and I thank him and his wife and his family for just being with me. And we drive over this bridge, and I'm nodding off because I'm still jet lagged. And Brother Cletus taps me. He's like, "Wake up, Chica, wake up. You got to see this. And I'm like, bro, why are you waking me up? You know I'm jet lagged and the timing is off." And so he says, this was the bridge they took slaves away. This is the bridge where they made slaves walk when they took them away. They took them out of Igbo land. And I started to feel sad. And it was like the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, ministered to me and said, you don't need to feel sad because you're back home. They had told people in Igbo land, they said once they took you over that bridge, they would never see you again. But I was back home. And sometimes we don't even know that we're answering the prayers of our ancestors. That's why I'm not going to look down on my Christian great-grandfather. He might have been the reason why Prophetic Whirlwind is coming out. Maybe he was praying for his future generations. And so that was emotional. But then also his town had a welcome ceremony for me, a welcome party. They have these associations that do community organizing, politics, finances, religious stuff. And his is a Bible-based association. The whole town, including the Eze, which is like a king over there, had a welcome ceremony for me. That was humbling. I was dancing with the women. You can see the videos on my page. And like I said, I do not dance here. I was dancing. But another thing is one day Clayton said, get out of the car. I want you to walk down this road in his town. So when I'm there, the elders are coming out. People are crying. But while I was walking on the road, it was a beautiful day. I was happy. And then I started to feel a heaviness in my spirit, a sadness in my spirit. And when so Clayton's uncle said come into his place, he was a local politician, and he started talking to me about the slave trade. And he said that was the road they took the slaves away on, the road you were walking on. I didn't even know that, but I was feeling the pain of my ancestors. And almost a year before that, my cousin Day Alston, she went to Nigeria. And I told her, I said, we're breaking something on our family. And it's symbolic for everyone because the Alstons own the most slaves in America. You can read family name, and there was a PBS documentary. It was on Oprah. I work in the same field as Reverend Mackie Alston, a white descendant of the people who own us.
Wow.
And he works against racism now. He's one of my biggest supporters. He said, well, when Prophetic Whirlwind comes out, the seminary I work with, let's do something. That's crazy in and of itself. That the daughter of the slave and the son of the slave master. But I felt like by going down that road, I was breaking something for my family. And my family represents all the slaves since we were owned by the biggest slaveholding family. So I felt the sadness before I even knew what the road was about. And then Sister Esther reminded me, during the day, because we drove over the bridge at night, Claytus took me. I said, I want to go back to the bridge. And he had given me this traditional Igbo attire. And anyone who knows me knows I love African attire. I have Chica's Closet, African attire brand. So I got some clothes. I took the material and got it made there in Igbo land. And he took a picture of me on the bridge. And the bridge where they said we would never be seen again, I'm standing on the bridge. I'm back home. And Claytus, because most of the slaves are sold from Arachuku, the oldest kingdom, his kingdom, he said the curse is broken. So this is for me, when I talk about Hebrews in Africa and Black people being Hebrews, one, I prove it through the various, in my book, I profile 15 tribes, and most of those tribes lost people to slavery. I'm not talking about hate. I'm not the descendant of the white people that own me talking about doing a book event. So, I mean, I'm not talking about hate. I have plenty of white people praying for this book to be released, talking about they going. I'm preaching. You know, I preach in some white churches. They more excited than some of my people. It's not about. It's not about hate. It's about redemption. And
Right.
I felt like there was something redeemed for myself and my family when I was standing on that bridge. And
Let me ask
only
you.
y'all can do that. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this. We have about 15 more minutes because I know you got to get off. What is the message for um, Hebrews that are in Nigeria and Ghana and on the West Coast? What is the message for the Hebrews in America? What would they say? What's on their hearts when it comes down to us that we're taken, their which we're family to them?
Mm-hmm.
What is the message? What have they said to you? What message would they want you to deliver to us over here?
One message was delivered, and I got it on video. It's on the Prophetic Whirlwind YouTube page, and it's a brother,
Okay.
the leader of the Safeway community, the Safeway Jewish community, sent a message to African Americans, and he said, Jacob was a black man. The Bible is a black book. It was stolen from us, but returned to Torah. Another message that the Igbos said is they want us to come home. They feel
Mhm.
persecuted and they want us to come home. And you have to know, because there's a rift between Africans and African Americans. But when you
Right.
go among your people, they are ready to welcome you. Sometimes that can't happen in America because people are told different things as immigrants. And this is kind of a shaky environment right now for immigrants. But when you are
Right.
over there, they see you as brothers and sisters and they want you to come home. They want us to
Mm.
work together. There are things that they can teach us about the cultural practices that prove we're Hebrews. And there's things we can teach them about Torah, about being protective over your culture. There's both things that we can teach. And it's like what Paul said about the whole body. You can't function without the leg. And I forgot
Right.
to mention I visited as a Eri, who is the king that descends from Eri in Genesis 46:16. He descends from Eri, who was a son of the tribe of Gad. He's a Messianic Hebrew. He comes to America, to Virginia, where most of the Igbos were taken. He lays hands on African Americans and prays that the curse of slavery would be broken off of us. I was surprised by a trip to go see him at Obu Gad, his palace, and he blessed me. He took me to the throne room where he has a throne with Paleo Hebrew on the bottom. That was so humbling. In the Igbo Israel Heritage Cultural Association, they gave me a title as Iyam, Grand Patron of the Women of the Igbo Hebrew Heritage Cultural Association. So I say all of that to say, from the kings to the associations, they want us to come home. I got so many gifts that I had to get another bag. They made me feel so honored. And for someone who for a few years as a child was an orphan, it was like Yah was showing me you have more family than you ever thought. And even though, we were separated, they're waiting for us to come back, and we need them to prove in a valid way who we are. And they want us to come back and visit, come back and live. That is the message. And it's sad, but they look up to us. And some young Igbo brothers asked me, they said, we love watching the different camps in America. They said, but why aren't y'all united? Why don't y'all do more
Mhm.
together? And these were young brothers. So that's another message, is that they're watching us. And what are they seeing when they watch us? And so they had, in another message, is we were not forgotten.
Right.
I know people in Ghana who know for a fact their families were sold away. They know that. They know on my mother's side, everybody was stolen away. My one friend, Afua, who's a Khan, she said, my parents lived in the hills because that's where their families ran. So people are
Mm.
not just in delusion about who got taken away. And it's time, I
Good.
think, for the family to reunite.
All right, man. This is definitely powerful. I know when soon as the book get ready to come out, I definitely want to have you back on. We want to support you as much as possible. I kind of have a bittersweet feeling because you're going to be going to Liberia, and I have the James 1-in-1 conference, and I wanted you to be a speaker, but you are going to be in Liberia. But that's fine. You're doing the work of Yah. I don't have no problem with that. I'm not coming against that. But definitely, I look forward to having you come to be a part of one of our conferences, especially specifically James 1-in-1, because brothers and sisters coming from the four corners of America. And so definitely, I thank you, sister. It's definitely truly a blessing. And may Yah continue to bless you. Any last words you want to add or anything like that before you get off?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for what you do. And I do look forward to speaking at a James 1-in-1 conference. We need to start doing more positive events like that. And I wanted to ask if people want to connect, definitely follow Elder Cletus Okoro, who's on Facebook. My website is www.propheticwhirlwind.com. And there's a blog section where you can read my blog of going to Nigeria, going to Ghana, and going back to Ghana this year. Also, there's articles and videos. Prophetic Whirlwind also has a Facebook page, Instagram, where I try to post daily about Hebrews in Africa and that type of thing. And on YouTube, there's many videos from my time in Nigeria and even my time with the Sefway Hebrews of Ghana. So I would love to correspond with everyone. I'll come back to do a book event, even if we could do an electronic book launch right here in this group, even from Liberia. Pray for me as I prepare to go, and I'll be back middle of July. But I'll be doing a book tour in the fall, and all to Yah be the glory. If there's any Christians who have any questions, or even Hebrews, I love to talk. And if you're in the New York area, please visit Bethel House of Yahweh. We're nice. We'll feed you. And we got good singing. So that never changes. So I just say to Yah be the glory. And we just have to pray for our brothers and sisters in Africa. There are many people, even from the Israeli government, looking at them. My Ashanti friend said the government, when he was a child, came to the palace because the Ashanti say they migrated from Israel and they came to study the cultural practices. And that's how my friend as a child started to think, wait a minute, we must be the people of Israel. But, everyone in the world is not good and doesn't have good intentions. So pray for our brothers and sisters and pray for the awakening that's happening here, that Yahshua would be the center. And I'm just humbled to be a part of it.
I don't know if you saw the comment about she could come to the women's conference. My wife is putting together a women's conference.
Yes.
So we'll definitely be in contact with you. Hopefully it's after you come back, and we'll go ahead and work on that, getting you to be a main speaker here at their women's conference. Her and Sister Janessa Edge on here, both of them Hebrew women. And but definitely I thank you. And I'm trying to remember, there's one more thing before I let you go. But anytime I come to New York, I'm definitely going to hit you up and, come worship and fellowship and stuff like that. But I look forward to seeing you. The Reclaiming the Throne trailer. We got about 5 more minutes. You're on the trailer, or on the movie, as well as I am. Brother Kevin Waters, who's on here. How did that come about? Really quick, just drop that on everybody.
So one, I would love to speak at the women's conference, and I can share the messages I share with the sisters in Nigeria. But the Reclaiming the Throne, Brother Ronald Doughton from Hebrews to Negros found me on Instagram. We became friends. He comes out of the church. He had me on the show. We support each other's research. I quote him in my book. And him and the brothers from Hebrew Nation Building had a vision for a positive documentary focused on African Hebrews. They asked me would I be a part of it, and I definitely liked their spirit and said yes. And that's a clip of me speaking at a 7-day Adventist college for an MLK Day event. And we have, please pray for this documentary. Pray for Ronald Doughton, Joshua William, the brothers who are putting it together. You can donate. Just Google Reclaiming the Throne. You can see the trailer on YouTube or the donation link. But there has been a lot of spiritual warfare on the back end for this
Yes.
day. You know, some of the stuff that has happened, but even with Brother
Yes.
Ron and his health. So I just ask that you keep it in prayer, because, you know, the enemy doesn't want the truth to get out, but we know greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you once again, sister, and definitely blessings to you guys tomorrow, feeding the homeless and stuff like that.
Thank
We
you.
pray that many of them come into the knowledge of the
Yeah,
truth and accepting Yeshua as Savior.
yeah,
And thank you once again. I'm pretty sure our sisters will be connecting with you on here, and definitely look forward to you coming to the women's conference and other conferences.
yes.
We're definitely going to make sure that, and we're going to support your book, definitely. So
Thank you, brother.
please remind me before the book comes out, that way we can, at least 2 days before, that
Yeah.
way we can go ahead and get the promotion for that as well.
Thank you so much, brother. And I'm wondering if we can, I just appreciate everyone. And could we close out in prayer? Could you
Yes.
close us out in prayer? Thank you.
All right. Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead and
Oh,
close us out.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you the floor. Go ahead.
Okay. So, everyone, if we could just prepare our hearts for prayer. Yah, we thank you for this night. We thank you for your Shabbat. We thank you for your saving grace, and we thank you for your knowledge. We thank you that no prophetic word uttered by you and your servants goes out void. And so, Yah, we come against every spirit of division. We come against every spirit of false teaching and cults and hatred. We come against every spirit that would attack the children in Africa. We ask that you protect our Hebrew brothers and sisters in Africa, in America, in the diaspora, in Colombia, in Brazil, to the four corners of
Yes.
the earth. But Yah, we ask that people of all races would come to a saving knowledge of you, Yah. I ask
Yes.
that you would empower everyone on this phone, that you would continue to break generational curses, that you would help us to walk as the head and not the tail, and that you would give everyone a divine revelation of your love, Yah. Open our
Yes.
eyes to your word. Give us your supernatural power and help us to truly have the character of your people and your word, Yah.
Yes.
Grow us to just take the gospel to more places, Yah. And we ask that you
Yes.
be with Ronald Doughton. We ask that you be with the brothers Josh and William from Hebrew Nation Building. Bless their
Yes.
families, bless their health. Bring the finances for the film. Bless each and
Yes.
every person on this call. And if there's anyone who doesn't know Yeshua as their Savior, help them to reach out and ask how they can be saved. Bless Evangelist Majors, bless his wife, bless Boom Ministries, y'all. Just help it to grow
Yes.
and be rooted and grounded in you. Bless Pastor Jonathan and Bethel House of Yahweh, and let someone from the soup kitchen come to a saving knowledge of you tomorrow. Be with Andrew and
Yes.
Wellington and everyone who's preparing for that. Bless Esther, Richmond, and Elia, my friends, brothers, partners who are on this call. And Yah, we
Yes.
just ask that in this time of fast fulfilling prophecy, that we will not be told to depart from you because you don't know us. So help us to get to
Yes.
know you and be known by you. And we ask all these things in Yeshua HaMashiach's name. Hallelujah. Amen.
Hallelujah. Amen. All right. Well, Shabbat Shalom to you all. Thank you once again, Sister Onleilove, for coming on, and look forward to seeing you again. Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, brother.
All right, brothers and sisters, that was it, man. What an awesome interview. Awesome. We thank our sister Onleilove for coming on. Truly, it was a blessing, and look forward to more interviews, more interviews. Shalom to you. Greetings to you, Eliyah Israel. Look forward to meeting you as well, brother. And man, listen, I'm telling y'all, the interviews are going to get even better and better and better. I mean, the Father is really going to open up a lot of things to us. He's really going to bless us with the Spirit. That's the thing. It's all about growing in the Spirit. We got the information, we got all the knowledge, we got all this, but growing in the Spirit is going to be key in the last days. While everybody's growing in information and knowledge, we're going to have to be able to grow in spirit. And man, I wish my brother Bishop Nolan McCants would have been on here on this live watching, because he does a lot of work over in Africa as well. And our sister was on here, but I'm definitely going to get Bishop on here, set that up, because I want him to talk about the work that he's doing in Africa as well. That would truly be a blessing to all of our ears. And so I look forward to seeing you guys once again. I love all of y'all with the love of Christ, man. Remember, it's all about Yeshua HaMashiach. It's all about him. That's it. If it's not about him, then it doesn't even matter. It's all about him. And that's what we're going to do. So look forward. If you're just not tuning in, you want to go back to the beginning and watch a powerful interview by our sister Onleilove, who's in the field, who does a lot of work in Africa, and talking about the Hebrews in Africa as well. So it's awesome, man. Grace to you all, man, and have a great one. Shalom.